All right, so a little bit of what we're going to go over in this workshop. I will be talking about the grades tab and where that's located in Pilot. I'll also talk about how to set up your gradebook and how to customize that with the settings that are tailored to how you want your grading system to look in Pilot. We'll talk about grade items and categories and how to create those, how to organize them in your gradebook, and then also how do you associate these grade items to different assignments throughout the course to make that whole grading process a little bit easier and less time consuming. So I did want to say too, this is a pretty short workshop. It's not going to take too long to get through a lot of this material, but I will stop occasionally to ask for questions. Like I said, you're still welcome to raise hand or use the chat function, but just keep in mind, I will stop pretty frequently to ask questions, and then we'll also have time at the end where you guys can ask some questions as well. I see a thumbs up. All right, awesome. So when you go to your Pilot homepage, most of our courses have this generic navigation bar at the top of the screen. George, I saw your little thumbs up icon. I like it. So what you're going to do is go into this grades tab right here. And if you did not import your course from an old section, if you're new to Pilot, the very first place you're going to want to go is this setup wizard. And this is great because it literally takes you step by step to help you set up. It gives you all these different options. I would encourage you right now, while we're doing this workshop, if you would like to pull up one of your own Pilot pages and start setting up your own gradebook while we're doing this, please feel free to do that. That'll be really helpful. You can ask specific questions then if they come up. So going through this setup wizard, you're going to scroll to the very bottom and hit this blue start button. And it, like I said, takes you step by step. So are you using a weighted system? And it even gives you examples. Is this something where your exams are 40% of the grade, your assignments are 30%? Then you're going to use this weighted system right here. If you're just doing a classic points and you're saying, hey, there are 500 points in the class and everything has a certain point amount, that's what you get. Points are good, so you can keep it that way. For the sake of weighted being just a little more, not complicated, but there are a few more steps with it, I'm going to go ahead and use a weighted system as an example in this workshop. So step 2 for final grade released, at the end of the semester, if you use the export to banner function that is in Pilot, which I won't go over today just because we don't have grades to send in, so it's kind of hard to show it as an example, but I can send documentation. If you're using Pilot to export grades, we ask that you put it in adjusted final grade anyway. So I always say from the get-go, just keep adjusted final grade selected when you do your setup wizard. And then automatically release final grade, this is up to you. This just means that once you've put in the final grades, it's going to go ahead and put those out on Pilot for the students to see right away. Most people leave that blank and they wait until the end of the semester. All right, grade calculations. So for this one, when you drop ungraded items, if you have this selected, dropping ungraded items means that if a student were to skip an assignment and they got a 0 on that, right? Unless you specifically go in and put a 0, it's just going to drop it and it will not affect their grade. So 99% of the time, faculty members will select treat ungraded items as a 0. So then you're not required to go in and actually manually put a 0 for it to impact their grade when they don't finish their assignments. I always like to automatically keep the final grade updated for students. That allows them to see what their score is as they're going through the semester. If you don't want them to have that, it basically just is a little area in the top of their grades screen that just says final grade or calculated grade and it has a score. If you would prefer that they don't see that and they can just look at what points they have and see their grade that way, then you would just deselect that. Oh, I heard a hand beep. Who have we got?
Hi, it's
It's
Carol.
Carol. Hi, Carol. How's it
Um, I
going?
want to go back a step to step
Sure.
3. The question I have is when you uh, click the button that says treat ungraded items as 0, when does it put that 0 in?
It will put that 0 in until it changes. So that's something that can freak students out depending on your settings if they see that they have a lot of zeros, but is pretty easily relieved when you say, "Hey, it's just going to be a 0 until you do the assignment, and then it'll change." That's a good
Oh,
question.
it's not dependent upon when the assignment opens or is due. It
Mm-hmm.
just, they all start at zeros.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. No problem. Great question. All right, default grade scheme. So typically we keep this as percentage. If your department has specifications on maintaining an organizational letter grade scheme, then that's an easy switch here. You would just put that here, and that just means that the students are going to see A, B, C, D. Okay, they won't necessarily see the percentage of their grade out of however many points or if it's weighted. So usually, especially with weighted, I keep it as percentage. I find that easier. What happens here is that at the end of the semester, when you do go to submit your grades, it does have to be a letter. So this is up to departmental and personal preference. I like to keep it as a percentage throughout the semester, but then you do have to switch it to a letter grade before you submit grades. And once again, for this step, managing the view display options, this is personal preference. How many decimal places do you want them to see in their scores? 2 is the norm. I usually just keep it at 2. The student display options, this one it's different for everybody. A lot of this, like I said, it's customizable, so a lot of it is personal preference. Um, for the student view display, this is just what's going to show up on their end. I usually get rid of grade scheme symbol and grade scheme color. The pilot system automatically assigns color schemes to grades. And so maybe between a 90 and a 100% might be blue, and the next one might be green. I don't prefer to have it color coded that way, so it's going to do it automatically in your enter grade section of the grade book, but at least this way the students don't have to see the different color and, maybe freak out if they see a red or a yellow. And then same with number of decimals to display, I keep it at 2. Final grade calculation. So do you want them to see how the grade is calculated throughout the semester? And that also shows up in that little box I was telling you about, the top of their grade book. They'll see final grade calculation. It'll show what their overall score is, and then it'll also show how it was calculated. They'll be able to click on that and look at the scores that way. So that I'm actually going to deselect. But it's up to personal preference, of course. And so that's everything. This is the summary. So if you look through, you can double check how you set everything up in your gradebook. And if it all looks good, you just hit this blue finish button. All right. So this is a new feature in Pilot. I have not messed with this. I'm not sure who changed it. I do everything from manage grades, and it's the same idea. You've got your grade scheme, your grade category. That can all be accessed from up here, but the spot that I like to do it is manage grades. All right. Any questions so far on the setup wizard? Sounds like so far so good. So the next step is going in and creating your categories and creating your grade items. So this blue new button up over here is where you're going to access those. I always like to say the category is kind of like the umbrella where you can put the grade items into. So categories for your courses, you might have one for weekly assignments. You might have one for exams. You might have one for papers or Dropbox assignments. So starting with the category, I'm going to make this one exams. The weight. So because I chose a weighted, when you have points instead of weight, it's going to say max points. And that you would put in how many points do all of the exams total for however many you're giving throughout the semester. Because I'm doing a weight, I'm going to say, okay, let's say that my exams are worth 40% of the grade. So I'll put that in there. This little blurb right here, allow category grade to exceed category weight. This is if your students have the ability to get extra credit and they can get a higher than 100% on all their exams, then you can click this little box and it'll allow them to go over that 40%. Now when it comes to distribution, this depends on how you're putting together your grade items. So a lot of the time, I'm trying to think of what I've seen in the past. Sometimes faculty will make the midterm worth a little bit less than the final. And it all depends on how you set up your class. If you're only doing a couple of exams and they are all worth exactly the same amount, then I like to distribute weight evenly across all items. That's the easiest thing because when you go to create the grade item, it'll automatically make those weights exactly the same within the category, which is pretty cool. If you have some that are worth a little more than others, then you can either distribute weights by points, and this will automatically calculate if you had a midterm that was worth 75 points and your final is worth 100, when you put the points in on that grade item creation, it's going to automatically calculate what weight out of that 40% 75 points is.
Me. I'm listening to the webinar on about doing pilot.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have it pulled up real quick?
Is this Betsy?
I'm sorry, I'm muting right now.
Oh. That's okay. Did you have a question, Betsy?
No, somebody across the hall was asking if I was listening to myself talk. So.
Oh, okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, no worries. No worries at all. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'll put in a couple of grade items for exams. I'm going to distribute the weight evenly. I'm just going to say my midterm and my final are going to be worth the same amount for this. And then you hit save and close. I did want to point out, actually, before we hit save and close, there is a restrictions area. I typically suggest that faculty don't really mess with the restrictions on their grades, because if you put an end date on a grade item or on a category, then on that date, the students will not be able to see it at all anymore. It'll totally disappear. And then you're going to get lots of frantic emails about, why can I not see my grades? Where did they go? So usually the way that I go about this is leave the restrictions alone. Earlier when Carol had mentioned, well, does it put in zeros constantly? So if there are always going to be zeros, aren't people, what's that going to look like? So if you want to set availabilities for grade items, and then whatever the assignment it's associated to, if that start date is, say, August 26th, and you don't want them to see that grade item until August 26th, then you can click on this and put that date in. And that is a good way to alleviate a freak out if they see that they have zeros in all of these different areas at the very beginning of the semester. Even though in my experience, I don't think students usually freak out about that too much, but either way, that is an option. So now I'm going to go ahead and hit save and close. And you'll see that we have a category here that is in blue. When we make grade items, it will be in white and it will be tabbed over to the side. Right now, because this is a weighted item, it's saying, oh, your grade is only 40%. So I need to put in the rest of my categories until they equal 100%. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll just do one more category that makes up the 60. I'll say assignments. Keep it easy. And on this one, I'm going to say distribute weight by points. And I'll show you how that works here in a minute. So now we've got our two categories. You'll notice that that error is gone in the top because our total weights for the course are equal to 100, and that's what we need them to be. So now I'm going to hit new, and I'm going to do a grade item. All of your grade items are going to be numeric, this very first choice right here. Or not all of them, most of the time. That is the most common, I should say. So I had one of my categories being exams, so I'd like to make an exam 1 grade item. If you see right here, this is where you select which category it goes in. So I'm going to put it in exams. You'll notice here that the weight is grayed out. Right now it's saying that exam 1 is making up 100%. That automatically changes as you add more grade items. So you can't change it manually because of our category settings, but it will change once I put in a new exam. Yep, and then putting in that title, and then I'm going to select the exams category to put that in. So I'm going to go ahead and say this is worth 100 points. However many points each of your tests are worth, that's what you would put in here.
And then what should be the weight on that?
So the weight is going to be grayed out because of the category settings. If you're distributing everything automatically in the category settings, you will not be able to change the weight.
And what if you did?
If you put it manually, then you would put in however much the exam is worth. So if the midterm is worth 50% of the total exams category, that's where you could put the 50%.
Okay.
Yep, so it all depends on those category settings.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, and then the only other aspect of the grade item, you'll see that there are these two buttons here, can exceed and bonus. Can exceed is, can they get more than 100 points on this? If they can get more than 100 points on this, then you're going to want to click this button. That might be if you have an extra credit question, then you want this to be able to exceed 100. Bonus is only if this is an extra credit assignment. If you were to add an extra credit assignment into your gradebook, you can designate it as a bonus and it'll make it out of 0 points so that it adds to their overall course grade, which is pretty neat. So nothing else on here is you don't really need to worry about. If we're not going to talk about rubrics today, so I'll go ahead and hit save and close. I heard a raised hand. Was that Carol?
Yes.
Okay.
Since you're doing exams, this is a great place to ask the question.
Okay.
If I have bonus or extra credit questions on the exam, but the exam is not extra credit, would I use the can exceed button or the bonus button?
You would use the can exceed button. Because
Okay.
if you hit the bonus button, that's going to put it in the gradebook as an entire extra credit assignment, which would make it out of 0 points, and then they could get up to, 100 points extra credit. Yes.
Is there an easy way then when I'm creating the exam to mark questions as bonus or extra credit?
There
so that
is in the
their
quiz
total number of points don't go into how many points my exam is worth.
Yes. Yep, there is a way to add bonus questions in the quizzes and exams.
Okay.
Yep.
That's what I needed to know. Thank you.
No problem. All right, so let me go ahead and do, was that Kuldeep? Did you have another question?
Yes. If you made a mistake and you want to change it, how do you go back and change it?
Sure. Let me go back to this page. So depending on which one, if you want to edit the category, you would just click on the category title. If you
Mm-hmm.
want to edit the grade item, you
Mm-hmm.
would just want to click on the grade item. So which one were you thinking?
Exam one. So you can go back and change the weights. Okay. All right.
Yep, it'll take you back to that editing page, and then just make sure anytime you make a change, hit these save buttons down at the bottom, because otherwise it will not make the change for you.
Got it. Okay.
All right, let me make one more grade item so that I can show you how that weight changes automatically. Say exam 2, and then I pick the category. And you'll notice this grayed out number, because I asked it to distribute all of the weight evenly, it has automatically made it 50% of that overall category. And so it's really nice when you have that setting, you could put in as many exams as you want, and that weight is automatically going to calculate for you, so you don't have to worry about it. George, what question do you have?
What if I put the maximum points 10 points? Would that be difference? Would that be equally distributed, or it will be based on 110?
So if you put this maximum points as 10, but then when you go to make your quiz is worth 50, then there's an error between the quiz and the gradebook, because the gradebook is going to make the changes and manually calculate what that score would have been out of 10. That can get a little tricky when you have a situation where your quiz might be out of 7 points, or it could be out of, 85 points instead of a nice even 100. Does that make sense?
Not quite, but I will give it a try myself.
Yeah. So the math will work out with the overall score, especially in the weighted system. The math would still work out whether this was put down as a 10 or a 100. Where it gets confusing is the students will see, wait, I got an 83% over here, and it's saying I got this many points, but in the grade book, it's saying I got something completely different. So that's what I would suggest, that when you are making these grade items, when it does ask for the points, make sure you're matching those points to whatever the assignment is worth, especially if you're going to have it associated so that grades are automatically being moved over into the grade book.
Courtney, I have a question. So we created, let's say, 3 categories, and in the first category, the exam, you created exam 1, and then you go put the next item, exam 2. It doesn't show right below exam 1. It shows after the other categories. How can we make sure that it shows right next or after the exam 1, exam 2?
So if you click on exam 2, are you practicing this in your pilot page?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so click on exam 2. So it takes you to that editing page.
Okay.
And then I want you to look at where it says category. Did you select a category?
It shows up when I do that. It shows up as a numeric. How do you select the category over there?
So if you look over at my screen in our WebEx, and I'm sharing my screen to kind of show you what I'm thinking happened.
Okay, I got it. Okay.
Okay, yeah. If you make sure you put it in that exams category, that's usually, if you see it populate toward the bottom, that's probably what happened. All right.
Okay, got it.
Awesome. I did make a Dropbox in here so I could show you how to associate a Dropbox. So I'm going to go ahead and real quick make 2 grade items, one for the Dropbox and one for a discussion board. So I can show you how to associate those when you go to build your gradebook. So I'm going to choose numeric. This first one I will name, I think it's Final Essay is the name of the Dropbox. This is going to go in assignments. And I'm going to say that's worth 75 points. All right, they cannot get any extra credit, so I'm going to save. And if you noticed, when I pull up this next one, this is going to be discussion 1. Looking down at the weight, it's grayed out and it's saying click save. So when I created the category assignments, I wanted it to assign a weight based on how many points the assignment was worth. So that just means that when I hit save and close, it's going to show up in my gradebook as different amount of weights based on how many points each of those assignments was. So if I said this one is worth 15 and the other one was worth 75, if you look over here right now, that final essay holds a lot more weight in the assignments category than the discussion post does. And so if you're using a weighted system, that is one way that you don't have to go through and manually calculate how much each is worth within your overarching categories. So before we talk about associating grade items, do we have any questions about the gradebook setup so far? Or would you like me to show you what it looks like in a points setup instead of weighted?
Can you go over the assignment again? That's your point setup, right? How do you do that? If you have 10 different assignments and each assignment has point,
How do you put the points in?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. So if I were to create a new assignment, I'm going to do that grade item. I'm going to select numeric. I'm just going to call this assignment 2. When I pick my category and then put my points in, this is where you put how much it's worth. So if you had 15 different assignments and they're all worth different points, right now I have my category set to change the weight based on how many points the assignment is worth.
So all the assignments will be then 10 points each?
If you went back and changed your category to distribute all of the weight and the points equally, then you could immediately just have them all be worth the same amount. 10 points is just what the system defaults to. So that is editable, but every time you make a grade item, it's going to say that it's 10 points. But it does not have to be 10 points. It just depends on what you have in your syllabus and how you want to set up your class.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
No problem. So this is kind of funky. There's not an easy way to just delete in one click. There's a few clicks involved. So if this assignment 2, if I want to go ahead and delete that, I changed my mind, or maybe I put it somewhere by mistake, I'm going to select it, go to this More Actions button, and then hit delete. This is going to bring me to another list. I don't know why it's set up like this. Sometimes it cracks me up. And then select it again, and then hit delete. All right, so Carol, when you go to delete your category, those are going to be the steps to delete your category as well.
Okay.
All right, so we've got a few more minutes, and I do want to show you how to associate grade items to the grade book. So I'm going to go over here to quizzes and exams. And I'm going to edit the exam by clicking on this link. It'll take me to the editing page. And most of the time when you are working with grades, it's going to be assessment related. So assessment under quizzes and exams. If you go to Dropbox, there's an assessment component there. That's what you're looking for when it comes to the grades. So for this exam, I'm going to allow it to be graded as soon as they're done. I'm going to associate it here. You see that there's a grade item, and it'll give you your full list of items as long as they haven't already been associated to something else. Those ones will not show up as an option. It'll only be items that have no association. I've got exam 1 right here. And then what's really cool is that if you have a pretty cut and dry quiz or exam that's mostly multiple choice, true and false, nothing that you have to go in and grade yourself, you can click this little button here that says Allow Automatic Export to Grades. And when the student is done taking it, not only do you have the ability to change what they can view after they've submitted, but you also can have it set up so boom, they took it, their grade is over in the gradebook now. You don't have to go in and put anything in. Pilot does it for you. Okay. So that is how you associate to quizzes and exams, and a shortcut to see that it's associated to a grade item is this little icon. It looks like a ribbon. And when you hover over it, it tells you, oh, that's grade item exam 1.
Can you do that again, please?
I can, yep. Let me go back in here. Go to assessment from clicking into exam 1, because that takes me to the editing page. I'm allowing it to be graded immediately, and that's more of a quiz setting, but for grading purposes, this little grade item drop down, that's where you select what you want it to be linked with. So I'm, boom, clicking exam 1. I'm allowing automatic export to grades. As soon as they submit, we're going to change those, we're going to send those grades over to the gradebook, save us some time. And then I hit save and close.
Courtney, if you were associating this grade with a Dropbox assignment, would you still click the automatic tab, or?
Let's do that one next. So I'll go
Okay.
into Dropbox now and I'll show you how to associate one in Dropbox. So I have in my Dropbox that just for this pilot shell, you will have your own assignments put into here. I'm going to click on this final essay and then hit edit folder. And that's going to take me over to where I can associate it to a grade item. So this is the new experience, and this is going to be new for quite a few people. They've just changed it recently in the past year. So it's a little different than it used to be in Dropbox. In this score out of, this is where I put how many points the final essay was out of. In my gradebook, I believe I set that at 75. So next to it, you see that little ribbon icon. That's a good indication. That's that something is associated icon. So that's a good thing to look out for. I'm going to go to the drop-down menu and choose from grades. We already have a grade item. What's kind of neat with Dropbox, you can create a grade item from here, or you can link it to an existing grade item, which that's where that gives you the choice of which item to link it to. And I'm going to click on final essay. And once you do that, you hit OK. And save and close. So you'll see there's that little ribbon icon right next to the Dropbox folder. And if we go to our gradebook, back to the Manage Grades, you see right here that it's associated in this little column. So there are a few different indications when you link all these together. You can see that it's linked and kind of confirm for yourself in several different places. If you wanted a little more information or you needed to double check the association, if you click on that little question mark, it gives you all the information. Which category, how much weight. I've got time restrictions on here, so it shows me when it ended. So that is how you go through and associate a Dropbox and an exam. I want to do one more in discussions, and then we'll wrap up and take questions. So for discussions, I have my forum and I have my topic. Okay. And then I want to edit the topic. So you'll see I clicked on this little down caret next to it. I'm going to edit this topic. And once again, what are you looking for with grades? You're looking for that assessment tab. You're looking for that assessment word. Right here, it has that same drop down that you saw in the quizzes and exams where you just choose a grade item. I already have discussion 1 in my gradebook. If you do not have it in your gradebook, you can click new grade item and create one from here, just like we could in the Dropbox. And then my discussion, how much was my discussion worth? Did I say 15 maybe? You want your scores to match up, so 15 points. And then save and close. And now once again, you see that little icon, that ribbon that lets you know it is linked to a grade item. All right, so going through, we talked about where to find the grades, how to set up the grade book, talked a little bit about how to link those to assignments. Are there any questions for me as we wrap this workshop up?
Okay, so I want to enter the exam 1 scores for the students. And the maximum points is 100. So how do I enter that?
So if you wanted to manually enter your grades for students for exam 1, you would go over here to this enter grades.
Okay.
And do you see right here, it has exam 1.
Got it.
And there's a little box, and you can go through and manually enter the grades. If you don't want to mess with having it automatically send the grades over from the test, this is another option. That's a really good question. Something I do want to say, if you look at this button here, switch to standard view, it's going to change what this looks like. So if you want to input and you want to see that little box where you can just put the numbers into, you want to make sure you're in spreadsheet view. And that's going to be, in my opinion, the easiest way to put all those scores in.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, and after you put the scores into, make sure you hit the save button. If you have multiple pages of students, because right now we're at 20 per page, if you have, 50, 70, 100 students in a class, you want to make sure that after each page you hit that save button.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all. Anything else? All right. Well, of course, oh, Carol, did you raise your hand?
Yes.
What's up?
If you see where it says 20 per page,
Mm-hmm.
is there a way to make that like 100 per page?
There is.
Oh, there is now. Okay, it didn't used to be.
One thing I will say, I have seen this error. I don't know if they've fixed it, so definitely try it. There have been problems in the past where faculty will change this to 100 per page, but then they no longer have the ability to put scores in for everyone at the same time. It's a weird little glitch. So if you go to 100 per page and this little white box disappears for you and you can't put the grades in anymore, then I would just say just go back down to the 20. That's the default. That one works pretty well. So,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, no problem. All right, so I do want to say before we jump off here, we're running a few minutes over. If you have any questions as you're setting up your gradebook, it's one of my favorite things to work on. I love the gradebook tool. I think it's so useful. Please reach out to me. I will be happy to set up one-on-one times with anyone who needs it, as long as we can fit it in our schedules. To contact me, you can email me directly, and I'm putting that in the chat for everyone now because my name is spelled a little weird. So it's just courtney.lay@wright.edu. You can also call the CATS help desk, and when they take the call, they put in a ticket and they'll route that directly to me. And so I can get that ticket in and I can either email you through that or I can give you a call back. And so the number for them, in case you don't have it, I'm putting that in the chat as well. So after we end this meeting, it is recorded. So I will send you links with a follow-up email to some of our resources for Gradebook on Pilot. I'll send you this recording, and there will also be a link to a very short survey 5 minutes or less. If you could give me some feedback on how to make this a little bit better in the future, I would love that. So otherwise, I hope everyone has a great day. And it was good to see some familiar faces in here, some familiar names.
Thank
Thank you,
Coach.
everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good day.